Welcome back in live to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Today we are moving on to week 8. We are over halfway through the college football season. We're starting to get a better grasp on some of these teams. I still can't get a grasp on Clemson, unfortunately. That being said, week 7 was pretty good to us. We won our kind of big game in Ole Miss on the road against Tennessee. We'll recap some of those games and then turn our eyes forward to the week 8 slate. Dill, before we get to week 8, what do you think about our week 7 slate? What'd you like? What'd you not like?
I think the most alarming game for the kind of the college football landscape is frankly Florida losing in the fashion they did, because that's a team that really hung with Alabama, and now I think that you maybe thought there were two definite teams in the SEC, and maybe on the cusp is like your Kentuckys and your Floridas, and now I'm very much not sure of that, just based on I'm not sure about the whole SEC. Just what I think Georgia's incredible, and I think everybody else is like way far behind. And
You think Bama's very far behind from Georgia?
oh yeah,
Really?
do you?
Interesting.
I mean, they didn't look great against Florida. That defense is god awful defense. And I don't get it because it's loaded to the gills and it stinks. So
it reminded me of that Texas A&M game that Florida played last year, I should say, where they just didn't want any piece of tackling. They were getting beat at the line of scrimmage on defense. They were not tackling well. LSU hasn't run the ball on anybody at all the whole season.
And yeah, they looked awesome.
Davis Price sets the single game rushing record at LSU that Leonard Fournette had. I mean, what is Florida doing? I mean, and also to be fair, they did turn the ball over 4 times. It's really hard to win when you go 0-4 in the turnover ratio, but that was a shocking one to say the least.
Yeah, and it just hurt. It hurts the SEC bad. Like they need Florida to be decent, and they probably need more so than Kentucky, because Kentucky I think has a ceiling on how good their program can ever really be, just because of inertia in some sense, being a basketball school first, like all those kind of things play against them. But like you need your LSU's, your Floridas to be decent teams, and they just can't lose. Florida's already lost. Like they've had their stinker, if you want to call it that, against Kentucky, and they can't go out and show out that poorly against LSU. So
LSU team that got whacked by a middle of the road Pac-12 team in Houston.
Yeah, really.
But by Pac-12.
Oh, like yeah, they're not like they're not a runaway favorite
from this game. What do you think about Anthony Richardson?
I actually think he can play, and he should have been playing the whole game. In hindsight, obviously,
he reminds me of Cam Newton a little bit with that big body.
Yeah, big body, and he throws the ball pretty darn good, honestly. Like he's got good deep touch, and Florida's got really good wideouts. It's just like their defense, with the exception of Elam, is god awful, and they are the worst tacklers.
Oh, they're a joke. Yeah, they're a joke.
They're like they might be as bad as like the Big 12 teams. Texas.
Yeah, that's alarming. It's kind of what we talked about all in the summer. It's like this defense just has a culture issue. They got very talented players on that team, and they just don't want to be tough. They just don't want to be tough.
And Grantham, he just can't be. Like he had to be fired last year. It's just inexcusable that he's back.
What about I'm gonna move us like quickly touch Nebraska, that's just a classic Nebraska stinker game. Nebraska's looked very good the past couple of weeks. They pushed Oklahoma. They pushed Michigan State at home, at Michigan State, I should say. They pushed Michigan the week before. There's one other team they kind of hung with, and they were looking good. And it was kind of like, okay, they can't get over the hump, and then they come out to Minnesota and just get walloped, and it's consistent, like not making the plays you need to make to win games. 4th and goal at the 1, running back trips, doesn't get in. That kind of like shut the door on the win. Or any hopes that we had that they were going to cover 4.5 points.
And they just got started way too late. Like they were
Yeah.
so bad, and their offense looked pretty good in the second half, like kind of what I'd expect out of a Nebraska team. But they can't kick field goals. They weren't punching the ball in the end zone, so it's like when you pair that up, that's a problem. When your kickers, and I think he was hurt, so it's not like trying to jump on him. But
he did hit a 50-yarder though. It's just not consistent. He's just not consistent.
Yeah, and again, whatever the injuries were, whatever's going on, like you got to make the kicks. I at some point. So yeah, you're right. It's just that's Nebraska football. Like they can't string together the games they need to, and even the plays they need to in game. Like just, I mean, their defense was alarmingly bad. I didn't think it was great against the teams like what they've been doing, and they can put some points up. Played okay defense against Oklahoma, but that was with Rattler, and Rattler wasn't moving the ball well against anyone. So it's like, I don't think it's a great defense. I don't think they've looked great in Nebraska, but God, their offense just started way too slow and it put them in a hole, and they really couldn't climb out. And credit to Tanner Morgan, he played a good game.
Well, he played a good game in the first half. That's for sure. Which he's just a weird. I don't know. I can't get a grip on Tanner Morgan. He's just a weird person.
Yeah, sometimes he looks like the ball's getting out really fast, really accurate, and then sometimes it's just horrific. So you're right. He is weird.
Moving on to the Pac-12, the late night schedule. So we opened up our day with a loss. Yeah, we'll talk about Clemson real quick. That was a me pick. I talked my brother into taking Clemson.
Square pick.
You can't take Clemson to cover 2 touchdowns when they can barely score 2 touchdowns. That's kind of what I took from that. It's like this offense, and I was kind of thinking, okay, they get some guys back after the bye week. Also, maybe you can just get some composure during the bye week, and I couldn't have been more wrong. There's some serious fundamental issues with this Clemson team that I just can't overlook. They can't protect up front. DJ's got the yips. He can't hit receivers, and then when he does hit receivers, like the receivers,
Ross. I don't know what was going on. Ross was dropping. He dropped like 3 big passes.
That makes some incredible catches, but then he just throws in these drops.
Yeah. The sad thing is like that wideout core is actually incredible. Like you were very right on Nagata. He's awesome.
Yeah.
Jew, I think is going to be incredible. Like that. You just like there's like a look to him. He's just 6'3" and big, but like is fluid and moves really well. And he did make a really good catch. So he's got the skills to just. I'm like very excited now for him next year. I hope DJ can figure it out and like give him a good season because I think he could put up some monster numbers.
I will say one thing before we move on is this Clemson offense is desperately missing kind of that safety blanket slot guy.
And the tight end's not a good player. He's
bland. He's bland. He did make that good catch on special teams, but like Amari Rodgers from last year, like the Hunter Renfrows, that's been like a staple of their offense. Some guy who can work the 5 to 15-yard routes. They don't have that. You mentioned a Joe.
Big outside guys.
They all, exactly. Big possession receivers who not necessarily getting the best separation. So they're definitely missing that. That being said, we're probably taking Clemson this week. We'll talk about it later. Anyways, let's just
parlay it right in. I mean, we can talk about get to that because now that we're talking.
Why don't we finish our? Because I want to just talk about the Pac-12 real quick picks, and we'll move right on.
Right.
We went UCLA over Washington, hit, and then Arizona State, who was winning by like 2 touchdowns, and then all of a sudden they just get boat raced. That was tough. The cash cow for us, we love the pick. Ole Miss on the road against Tennessee. One of the more fun games I've watched in the last couple weeks. Blast to watch. Matt Corral never seemed to find his rhythm. That being said, he figured it out on the ground. Ended up edging out Tennessee in what was kind of an insane ending to the game. Joe Milton comes in and just poops his pants, which I loved. But yeah, so we ended up going a little bit positive due to the Ole Miss game. Kind of a couple wins, couple losses. Ole Miss puts us over the edge. But not a bad week. A fun week, though. A fun week for sure. Okay, let's move on to week 8. You wanted to talk about Clemson first. Me and Dill have been talking about this since the line came out Sunday afternoon. Clemson opens up as a plus 160 road dog to Kenny Pickett and the Pitt Panthers. We're taking Clemson. We didn't quite get it at plus 160. I think we ended up locking it in at plus 150. Still good value. I'm happy about it. Okay, Clemson might not cover 2 touchdowns, but I think they're going to win. They're going to win here. Pitt likes to drop back and throw the ball. Kenny Pickett. Clemson can rush the passer really well. They got still some dogs up front: Miles Murphy, Xavier Thomas, KJ Henry. So I'm taking Clemson just on the note that they're just too talented to lose this game. I feel horrible about it, but I'm gonna give them.
They're definitely not too talented to lose a game to anybody. I think at this, there's an element of them having talent, but I think there's also like some massive gaps in the talent of that team. So it's like,
yeah, the offensive line.
I like the pick, but I'm not comfortable taking anything with Clemson at this point. I think like DJ needs to play way better than he's playing. He's not a particularly good athlete, so he's very reliant on his arm, and you're right. He just doesn't look at all comfortable, and I can't blame him because the offensive line's brutal. And in response to the issue I see on defense is, I agree, yeah, they can rush the passer, but their linebackers need to do a way better job cleaning up the trash, if you will. When the plays break down, they need to make tackles. And I didn't see Skalski definitely missed a couple that were really bad and led to first downs. And
to be fair, Gary
you can't have that.
Or very solid athlete. Wake Forest also kind of struggled to tackle him.
Pickett's not a bad athlete like himself. So it's like, he's not Schrader, but like those plays still need to be made, and he's gonna make Clemson make them. So we'll see if they can. I mean, I'm with the pick. I don't have any issues. I do think like when you can get a Clemson dog, money line dog, like it's tough to pass up because they are still Clemson. So
yeah,
but I don't like think it's like some obvious play. I mean, Clemson can lose. Like
basically, what I'm gonna give Clemson, we're down 2 units on them. I'm gonna give them a chance to make it up plus 150. Like, hey, give me my money back, and then probably just won't touch Clemson this year. I also think there's a little bit of
we'll be back to them as money line dogs. I know that.
Well, I don't know if we'll
get
money line dogs anymore if they beat Pitt. Anyways, I think there's an element of the Pitt Panthers being a little overrated too. They're 5-1. Kenny Pickett's putting up disgusting Heisman numbers, and I'm a big Kenny Pickett guy. I've been a Kenny Pickett guy since 2019. I like him. That being said, they haven't really been pushed. UMass, easy win. They struggled against Tennessee. Joe Milton.
That was Joe Milton, Tennessee.
So this is a completely different Tennessee team. Ended up pulling it out, but that was, I think, largely due to Joe Milton just missing some horrible, horrible throws. Ended up losing to Western Michigan, who's actually a very, very good non-Power 5 team, but still a loss to a team that's not great. Then they go out and beat New Hampshire, who stinks. They beat Georgia Tech and Kenny Pickett. That was kind of like Pitt might be for real. They go play Virginia Tech in Blacksburg. They only give up 7 points, which was the most impressive aspect about it. But Kenny Pickett only threw for 200 yards. The first kind of legit defense or close to legit defense that Kenny Pickett saw, he only put up 203 yards. And so I don't think this Pitt team is like some sort of like offensive juggernaut. I think it's a result of them playing a horrible defense in Tennessee.
Tennessee's bad defense.
They're not FCS, but like horrible. University of New Hampshire is FCS, I think. UMass is like horrible.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are.
And then a Georgia Tech team that is just super inconsistent. So it's just like this team isn't that good. I don't know if they have much business being a top 25 team. And so you give a Clemson team that's still chocked full with 4- and 5-star guys, plus 160 money line on the road. Like, I'll take it any day of the week. I think there's good value there. I don't think Clemson loses this game.
Yeah, no, I like the pick. I don't love it. I mean, I'll be nervous throughout, but we'll see. I do end up liking it. Yeah, I'm gonna switch over to I think my favorite pick this week. I like Oregon to just beat UCLA outright at plus 110. I like UCLA. I don't think they're a very good offense. They're super one dimensional, and watching them against Washington, I think stood out. They're really struggle to move the ball in the air consistently. And the problem is that Charbonnet is incredible, and he will scare you against Oregon. I mean, you're gonna make Noah Sewell be athletic and deal with him in space because that's how they run. They get on the edges, and but with Kayvon Thibodeau back, I think he's making a monster difference. He dominated the game against Cal, and at the end of the day, I think they should be able to throw a little bit on this UCLA team. UCLA was letting guys pretty open against Washington, I thought, and a bad Washington air attack had a decent game against UCLA. So I kind of see like, okay, if Anthony Brown just plays like he was playing in the beginning of the year, they really shouldn't have a problem with this UCLA team.
Yeah. UCLA's been a weird team in my opinion to kind of get a read on. They look very, very good against some teams and then drop the ball against other teams, including who is the team that they lost to? Slipping my mind, Fresno State. Kind of like a letdown game. So Oregon eerily kind of reminds me of a Clemson team where it's like this team is very talented and should be playing better than it is. They're going on the road. You're obviously getting good value. UCLA won't they're not a football like culture. And so again, it's kind of like they're not going to be like that rowdy.
No, the UCLA road is not that big of a deal, really.
ESPN's Football Power Index has Oregon favored, so I like that's kind of like all lining up. Travis Dye, he might look like the stupidest football player ever. No gloves, kind of like a scrawny Lagabi. He gets the job done. He's no CJ Verdell. He's no muscle hamster CJ Verdell.
He runs hardest.
Yeah,
is all whatever. Like, I like his game. I think really what I think there's pretty good athletes on the edge for Oregon, and I think that can hurt UCLA. I don't think they're a great secondary, and Oregon shouldn't be overwhelmed by that defense, which is kind of what they rely on, being really aggressive and blitzing and letting their pass rushers kind of go to work. So hopefully, I think the offensive line for Oregon is frankly pretty impressive to me. So I think they match up pretty good against this UCLA team.
Yeah, I like it too. Again, I think it's a very similar pick to the Clemson pick, where it's a historically team that like they don't normally lose these games, but they have been playing not their best football, so you're getting some good value. Yeah, I could ride with the pick. Why don't you throw us another one that you like?
I think Wisconsin. I think I would just stick to the money line personally because you don't have to lay that much. I think it was minus 155 or something in that range. The line is set at 3, and
that's juicy.
I know that's super close, but it's not that juicy realistically. 155 is not bad in my opinion. I think this game's going to be ultra low scoring. That's pretty much how Purdue's been playing. That's obviously how Wisconsin's forced to play. I think Purdue's kind of. I'm trying to think of what I want to say about them. Like they beat a Hawkeye team. I'm not sure the Hawkeyes coming off a big win, a game that they really weren't. They were competitive with Penn State for sure, but we're definitely not going to win that game. Minus Clifford getting hurt. So I'm not sure or Iowa's a top 10 team, frankly. And then so then you give up a little bit of a letdown to Purdue, but I think Wisconsin still has the chops to beat a Purdue team. Really, really good defense. Probably won't give up much more than 10 points or so. And can they make a couple plays? They have some wideouts who can play a little bit, and can you make like one or two plays? I think they can, and I'll take them.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump on you pretty good for this one. I don't.
Well, that's not a good recipe for you, but you
I
can
don't
do
want
it.
to sniff. I don't want to sniff this Wisconsin team. They're just like lost. They don't really have an identity. They don't really have an offense. I think it's the same. It's a very similar matchup. Iowa and Wisconsin remind me of a lot of very similar playing styles. Like they don't have quarterbacks that they can lean on to throw. They don't really have an offense that's very explosive, and neither does Purdue really. And the reason why Iowa lost, and the reason we kept on this podcast saying Iowa's due for a loss, is they've heavily relied on turnovers. And if Purdue doesn't turn the ball over and doesn't give Wisconsin short fields, like they're going to just struggle to score points. Especially with the emergence of O'Connell at quarterback for Purdue against Minnesota, he threw for 370. Obviously, they lost that game, but you could see him starting to cook. And then he threw for 375 against Iowa, which is many people said a top 5 defense in the country. And then is David Bell. He's emerging as like a dog catching for 120 against
like Rondell Moore. I've been hearing.
He's just, I mean, he was always second fiddle to Rondell Moore, but like Bell, he's officially arrived on the scene. Purdue plays good defense. I don't. It's more, I think I just don't like Wisconsin going on the road with a team that's just like they can't score. So I wouldn't lay it with Wisconsin ever.
I agree. They definitely can't score, but they play really good defense.
They need to get turnovers. That's what they'll need.
Yeah, or just be shut down. I think they can do it. I don't love it, but I think like okay.
So long though. Like
Purdue is kind of. I mean, realistically, like I almost feel like Purdue should be favored in this game based on the results of what's been going on. So it almost makes me think that Purdue is not as good as like their last 2 games imply, and they're closer to maybe what they were at the beginning of the year. So it's
what's the over under in this game? That's what I would take. I would just blindly take the under.
I have no idea. I'm not an over under.
It's better,
40. So I didn't even look.
It's 40. Oh my god.
I don't even know if they get there though. That's like
it's just gonna be so ugly. It's gonna go by so.
You can't take that, but I think Wisconsin I think they'll be able to physically overpower them in a way that Purdue is not faced. I think Iowa's a decently physical team, but not. I wouldn't call them a physical defense by any means. Like they've relied on turnovers. You're right. That's how they've stopped people. They really weren't stopping Penn State that well until the quarterback got hurt. So I just think you have a decent shot to get a team that realistically this will be one of the harder games, probably the hardest Purdue's. Notre Dame's probably a little better, but
it'll be a letdown game if anything. It's more just like
that's what I think. And I just think physically, they're just going to be able to beat them up, and nobody's really been able to do it to. What's that?
Iowa didn't do it, and Iowa would be the team to beat them up.
I don't think Iowa's they're not physically on defense. Like their defensive line doesn't dominate games. Their backers don't. What they've done is, you're right, they've taken the ball.
It's a little different. You're right.
They weren't beating up like Maryland, which is the one game I really watched against them, and I wasn't like, "Ooh, this is a stifling defense." They just kept getting picks. Like they forced some bad errors. That's what they did, but they were giving up yards. So. I feel like Wisconsin due for a win. I mean, how are they just going to lose every game?
I don't know. It doesn't sound like you love this pick. Like it does show like you're
well, yeah, but like you don't like do anything on feeling. Like sometimes you just have a feeling. Nebraska,
that's fair.
Nebraska, Illinois, USC, Utah. Like when
for the viewers, my brother's gut.
When my gut tells me to jump on it, I jump on it.
Specifically, his Big Ten gut is good. He has a good feel for the Big Ten for the Big Ten games. I'll give him that. He watched a lot of Big Ten. Kid gets it. You just know what you'll find me taking Wisconsin because they stink.
Yeah, and it is it's a good recipe when your brain says, "Oh, no, can't take
That's
that."
fake.
Like
That's
you
fake.
generally end up on the wrong side of that. So
Yeah, I don't know.
when you vigorously disagree with me, you generally don't come out. Well, I mean, I can pick 3 examples, and it was Illinois, Nebraska, Kentucky, Florida, or no, who was LSU, Kentucky, and then last week USC, Utah, 2 weeks ago. It's just like when I have a feeling and you have the opposite feeling, I kill you in that.
They'll just pick the only games you
Just be careful. No, I mean it's
just
just the
ignore the
exact
fact that you
situation.
wanted to splash a ton of money on Iowa State money line when they were traveling or at home minus 180 against the freaking Hawkeyes.
That hurt. That was a
Won't
good
tell you
game,
that.
but whatever.
I'll tell you that. All right,
No,
I
so
don't
it's
know.
what 3-1.
I mean, I get where you're coming from. I don't know.
Yeah, because you're a stat guy. You don't watch.
I
Like,
watch.
O'Connell. He's putting up he's throwing the ball though. Like, you don't care.
That was weird because he did throw for 370 yards for 13 points.
I didn't know that. That when you were saying that, it was like
let's move on from a gutter game. That's a disgusting game.
Yeah,
I'm
whatever.
also looking at the book. Michigan opened up on October 30th as 2-point favorites going in.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I love that. Let's move on to Utah -3. That's my pick. Utah's been playing some really good football. Got punched in the mouth by a explosive Arizona State team is maybe the right way to describe them. Weathered the storm. They got their new quarterback in Cameron Rising.
He's good. He's actually really short.
I think he was committed to Texas, but he's got a good arm. He can move around. I like his game. I like his game a lot.
Like I thought guys were covered against Arizona State, and he was just fitting balls in. So that, like, I'm kind of with that. I think he's really pretty decent.
I don't love this Oregon State team. I'm no like expert on the Pac-12.
No, they're pretty close to Wash.
Well,
I think Wash is pretty bad.
It's getting to the point where Utah's like my favorite team in the Pac-12. They play a physical brand of football.
Over Oregon?
The new quarterback is like given.
I do kind of want to see that. That's true.
He started out beating not so good. I think it was Southern Utah, and then they lose to BYU and they lose to San Diego State team by 2 points. They haven't lost since. They beat a decent Washington State team. They rout a USC team, and then they get punched in the mouth early against an Arizona State team and battle back. Like this team's kind of like under the new leadership. They're coming together. I believe Cam Rising came in against the San Diego State game, led him back, and then just couldn't finish the job.
You're actually talking me into this pick. Like I didn't necessarily have a super strong opinion, but you are talking me into him. Again, the only thing concerning is like they were getting beat pretty good by Arizona State until the half, and I don't love relying on like halftime changes. Like when you lose the first half bad and then come back in the second, that's like it's not a good formula to me because I think that's like okay, you caught a team sleeping after they beat up on you pretty good, and maybe they came out a little flat and you took the momentum back, but I don't think that to me is what like I don't want to see that defining my teams, if you will, like the teams I want to be looking at. But I
don't think it really is like a halftime adjustment as much as like, okay, this team like got down.
It's just the mentality though. It's like, was it more Utah playing really well, or was it Arizona State taking their foot off the pedal and maybe just playing flat in the second? Because I think that's kind of like a common thing that had just like a football thing. Like when you go into a locker room, big lead at half, I don't think it's wildly uncommon to come out and play a bad second.
Okay, I think I like it.
But I am with you. I'm just like the one argument against like, okay, so their last week's win, but I do think Cam Rising, in fairness, was very impressive, and their defense was getting after it pretty good too. So I actually like the pick too. I know they have that star middle linebacker, right? And
Lloyd,
he's kind of the guy who leads the charge for that team.
It's just a super one-dimensional. They just run the ball, and Nolan at quarterback. I'm looking at kind of his stats throughout the year. He beat a Washington team. He only threw for 48 yards.
That can't have it.
And then
just can't do that.
They lose to Washington State, and he only threw for 140. Like they don't really throw. They just run with B.J. Baylor and Fenwick, and they do it. They do it well, but like when in a similar light to an Iowa team, where it's like when you're so one dimensional, like teams are just gonna put guys.
You don't want to play a decent team, yeah. In Utah is one of the more physical teams, and they have been. That's how Kyle Whittingham coaches. So they are a more physical team generally than most teams or most of the Pac-12. So
they're not as flashy, but like they've been sneakily like one of the more consistent Pac-12 teams you've seen in the last 10 years.
And they do it. They have big wideouts. They pound the ball with big linemen, and they are bigger, more like they just play a different style than everybody else, which I think helps.
All the hype in the Pac-12 on kind of like the blue bloods of the Pac-12. But like this Utah team is tough, and they play hard every week.
I'm with this, Vic. I'm with this. You talked me into that pretty good. I didn't have, again, not a super strong opinion, but
do you have any more? I have one more that I want to get. I have two more.
I have three money to. I'll just combine the three money line dogs. One Maryland plus 175.
Yep.
I think that doesn't sound right to me. I think Maryland's a pretty decent team,
and it's also just in my opinion. Sorry to interrupt. Minnesota's just a super inconsistent team.
Yeah, it's like I think you're catching Minnesota at like PJ Flack. Oh, culture, whatever. PJ Flack, relax.
Yeah, but like I feel like we've like all like we kind of like figured that out. But like it's also like they'll look so good, like how good they looked against Ohio State for 3 quarters, and then like how bad they look in some other games. And it's like
they've been mostly bad, frankly.
I'll take Maryland, who has a very explosive offense. Granted, they lose their best receiver. Talia has been pretty solid outside of one game.
But when Martinez started cooking, they started cooking Minnesota pretty good. So if you just get a decent game,
half by a landslide.
I don't think that game should have been super close. And I actually think it's going to probably be a high scoring game in general. I'm guessing. I mean, if Minnesota plays the offense they can kind of play, they're going to score, but that sets up okay for a money line dog, I think, at plus 175. So I think I'm fairly comfortable with that.
And to interrupt you, I'm a little nervous. We have Coastal covering 5 points.
Oh, I'm very nervous. As I statcast this, I am.
Again, overtime, or let's see.
We need overtime, I think, because otherwise it's going to be a field goal win, and that ain't gonna cut it. So next game I think I like is West Virginia TCU. I think West Virginia plus 165, decent value. And my main reasoning is West Virginia actually shut down or did a decent job on defense against Maryland in kind of containing what Talia does with the scrambling and in the pressure he puts on teams. So I actually I think the matchup is decent. I don't think TCU is great, and I think you're getting good value for West Virginia, a team that can run the ball, and a team in TCU that gave up a zillion yards to Bijan Robinson and couldn't tackle him. So Letty Brown's fit to have a pretty good game, and I just think the value is decent. And then my final one, and this is again, this is a bit of a feeling, but I kind of like Washington State at plus 155. I mean, they're getting really hot. Won 3 really pretty good games in the past 3 weeks. So they're in a 3-game win streak, and they knew what was happening. I think everybody knew Rolovich was going to be done. He wasn't going to get vaccinated, and the whole team knew it. They had a plan, I think. So I think they're going to be more ready than people think. I think you can use this as like a rallying point, and the kids love Rolovich, it seems. So it's like that team really like Rolovich, and can they rally around just the adversity? Like just bring it, like kind of a Spartan Army position, whatever it was, from 300. Like, you get in your little phalanx and just go to battle and beat a BYU team that frankly is not like wildly impressive. I think they're decent. I'd really like Hall, but he's obviously had a lot of injury problems through the season, and wonder how much they're going to want to run with him and use his athleticism at this point. And again, Washington State playing really good ball. So,
and at home,
and I imagine it's gonna be bumping. And I mean, Pullman, I think the fans are pretty passionate for like what they are when their team is good and they're playing good ball, and it's just a rally point. I got a feeling I liked what they did against Stanford, and I just think getting decent value. I don't think the role
might not be as strong as the Big Ten got. Trust it. Yeah, my last money line sprinkle, and we'll close out the show. We've gone pretty long. And I feel like the biggest square taking this because it's just such a weird line, but Oklahoma State at plus 210 going into Iowa State.
I love that.
I think Oklahoma State's very, very similar to an Iowa. I think they're like the Iowa the Big Ten isn't like, or the Iowa the Big 12 is not far off. They haven't really played any that impressive teams. That the Texas win looks worse and worse by the day.
Boise State's not a bad win. I mean, like,
yeah, but they didn't look good against Boise State. They beat Baylor. Baylor's not a bad one. I like Baylor. But it's more. I don't like Iowa State that much.
One thing I would ask when you say they didn't look good against Boise State, is that because you had a perception of how they should look, and that's scoring a lot of points and maybe giving some points?
Yeah,
but in fairness, the defense was awesome.
Yeah, that's actually a good point because I'm used
number
to
7 was good.
Teams running gunning.
Yeah, that's what I was like. What the hell? Like, you need to
talk about one-dimensional teams. Like, they just pound the ball with Warren. God, he gets like. I mean, I pull up his.
He's a savage.
Can you pull up while I'm talking? Can you pull up their how many carries he gets a week?
What's his first name again?
Just go to Oklahoma State. I'm blanking on his first name. I can do it. Oh my God, I gotta just do it.
I'll do it. I just have to do it on my phone.
Faster. Now
I gotta keep the Jaylen Warren. No, it's Jaylen Warren. It's easy.
Oh boy, how many carries he's had? Like,
he's got 148 for 705 yards and 6 touchdowns.
Well, like, so that's average. I feel like the last couple of weeks he's had like
he's 4.8 average.
I'm not. That's just not what I'm looking for.
Well, I don't know what you want.
I'll do it for you. Don't worry. I will save the day here.
You just don't know anything. He's taking a lot of carries though.
That's what I'm saying. I wanted to know how many carries he gets a game.
33, 36, 27, 32. Last 4.
Good job. That's what I was looking for.
Well, you could have said that in fairness.
Anyway. Oklahoma State is very one-dimensional. They Spencer Sanders cannot throw the ball. They pound the rock, and Spencer Sanders can run. He's a very good athlete, and they play very, very good defense. Malcolm Rodriguez is kind of flying on my draft board at that linebacker spot. They have a very strong second. They have a very complete defense. We're not used to seeing this good of a defense in the Big 12. And they Iowa State team that had a rough start. They're starting to shape up, but I'm not like a big believer. I think Brock Purdy's very, very overrated. Breece Hall's legit, but I think Oklahoma State can bottle him up. I worry that Iowa State can bottle up. Iowa State's pretty solid against the run. I'm nervous that they'll be able to bottle up Warren. That being said, you're getting plus 200 for a top 10 team to go into an unranked team and win. Like, it's more of like a principle pick. Like, I'm gonna take it out of principle that I think there's some solid value there. And Jaylen Warren's a legit dog. Like, you don't want to he's 5'8", 220, like a little muscle hamster. You don't want to tackle him that much.
It is like a weird clash for the Big 12, like two teams that are playing. The problem is Iowa State's playing just bad. Like, they're wildly disappointing. And at this point, I think there's no salvaging their season. Like, they're going to need to win some unwinnable games in a sense to make it like that this season was an absolute bust, because like they were thinking Big 10 title, or Big 12 title.
They'll need to run the table.
Yeah, so it's like their season's kind of dead. They've lost
Well, they can still
the
win the
the
conference.
Iowa loss is
Iowa
really
lost is
bad. Like they
Iowa.
want to beat Iowa, haven't done it in forever. Baylor hurt. And again, like you're right, but they're not going to beat some of these teams. Like they need to beat Oklahoma. They're not beating Oklahoma with Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I was wrong. I was wrong about this Iowa State team. I really was a believer.
I just think it's a disappointment. Like, and I don't think they're talented enough to kind of be like as deflated as I'm guessing that team is. And I think
I'm not gonna have them deflated. And again, this is like a less of like a, I don't like Iowa State. I don't really like. I like.
I actually like Oklahoma State.
I don't love Oklahoma State. I think again, like okay, you play good defense, but you can't do one dimensional on offense. But
I
it's like
agree, but they both are.
There's good value at plus 200, even if you want to take like to cover a touchdown. I think that's
also like Spencer Sanders is playing a little bit better since Boise State. Honestly, like he's not playing great ball, but
still,
like
it's more just the one dimensionality of that offense. Like they just run the ball too much. They haven't really thrown. They haven't shown they can do it through the air. That's what kind of worries me.
well, yeah, again, but they're getting better, and once they hit the meat of their schedule in Kansas State, Baylor, and Texas, like he was 344, 182, 178. So it's like he's not playing great ball.
200 yards is nothing in the Big 12.
It's nothing in the Big 12, but when you're running as often as they are and as effectively as they are, it's not like crazy bad numbers. And again, I'm not saying they're good. He's turning the ball over too much, but I don't think Spencer Sanders is as bad as you're putting on him. I think he started off really poorly, and that hurt. Okay. But
so
it is what like
you like plus 200. I'm kind of talking myself out of placing it, to be honest.
No, I love it actually.
Yeah,
more. I mean, this is like the dog. This is like the kind of game I love. I just think it's an undervalued underdog.
Yeah, we'll see. It'll be a fun one though, because at the end of the day, Iowa State is starting to play better, and they're a very talented team. Well, talent, but they're just a very experienced team. They have a lot of returners, a lot of guys who've proven that they can play ball. So,
I don't get how you just think they're disrespecting Oklahoma State. Like they're playing a different style of football, but they're playing it well.
Yeah, no, I think you might be right. That was a really good point where you said like, well, is it just like it's just different from what I expected? And that there's probably a lot of truth to it.
It was to me. I was like watching them like, ew, why can't they move it on Boise State? And then I was like, at the same time, it's like, well, why can't Boise State move it on them? So it's like
they play solid.
Yeah, I don't know. And again, I hate Iowa State. I hate the direction that they're going, and
that's such a I don't know. They lost the game to Iowa, who is now a top 2 team. Was a top team. I'm not saying I love
easy on the top 2,
but that they end up going and beating Penn State and playing some good football, and then they shoot Baylor 9 times out of 10. They outgained them 400 blank to 200, and they just. Couple of red zone trips that didn't punch in, a kick return for a touchdown for Baylor, and they end up losing.
Problem is like Oklahoma State fed Baylor pretty good. Like just
I think wildly close game. Leads them pretty good on a normal day. Though. They fed him pretty good the whole game. The scoreboard didn't reflect it. I watched most of it. So we'll see. So I guess we'll settle on it's more of a value pick. It's a toss-up game. Oklahoma State's going on the road to Ames. But there's good value. Oklahoma State's proven that they can play good defense, and you will be in games if you can play good defense.
Especially when you're going against a quarterback who is not proving much.
Oh, yeah, he's a little overrated. That's true. Yeah, that'll do it. The slate isn't great, as a college football fan. We gave you our best picks. It's kind of very similar to last week. That being said, after this week, it's going to heat up.
We need some Big Ten East action, and that's going to be electric.
It's going to get real the next couple of weeks. There's some good games in the SEC coming up as we kind of get thicker into conference play. So the games are gonna start heating up. Look out for that. Sorry, the show went a little over. We kind of wanted to recap the last week for you. But yeah, get ready. Follow us on Twitter. We'll kind of be updating our picks as we go. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you all next week. Peace.